Psalm 39 finds David in some serious contemplation about life, death, and what we're to do with our time in between the cradle and the grave. But on today's Word, Pastor Brett Meadows.
America's listening to Fox News.
We're on. Okay, so we do those next. Start your recordings.
Is this live? That's what I thought. Welcome to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to us on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. Thanks so much for joining us here on, what is today? Wednesday, Faith and Family Wednesday, middle of the broadcast week. You know, you forget where you are when you do these programs every week, but so happy to have you join us as we cover a topic that, well, I don't think it's covered enough. I mean, faith and family is at the core of all of us. I think everybody has some kind of family, whether it's a natural biological family or whether it's some kind of work family or friends family, and everybody has some kind of faith. You have faith in something. Maybe it's God, maybe it's yourself, maybe it's something in between. And so we love to cover these topics because this is really at the core of community, at the core of society. On the other days of the week, we cover business and culture on Mondays, government and politics on Tuesdays, media and education on Thursdays, and then we rinse and repeat. Why do we do this? Well, one, we want to cover all of our culture, all of our society, and this, more than anything, it forces us to do it. Because, you know, in journalism, one of the things you learn is as we like to expose the media, we like to inspect our own profession here, is that we're pretty lazy for the most part. And the reason that is how can you ever tell all of the news? Like, there's just way too much information out there. So how do you pick stories? Well, a lot of the time it's because they're right in front of you or they're easy to get. And in the news field, there's plenty of people who are willing to put press releases in front of you, what we call rip and read, where you take it off the, what used to be the telex. Now it's, emails, they come in, you get them, that's what's in front of you, that's what you tell the story about. And so much in the news is, they say if it bleeds, it leads. If it's exciting, if it's sensational, and the story can be told relatively easily, then it gets on the news. Investigative journalism, that's a different story. Bold investigative journalism, that's a completely other story because there are points where you start to take your life in your hands covering stories. And it's not just war correspondence, folks. There's a lot of news that people don't want to get out in this area. And one of them, how about this for a segue? One of them seems to be this whole thing around this hate crime hoax that happened here back a couple of years ago now during the 2023 mayoral election here in Colorado Springs. And the trial for that case is happening right now. Derek Bernard, Ashley Blackcloud, and we have citizen journalists up at the courthouse in Denver. Mayor Yemi and his wife testified yesterday, and we're going to be finding out in the next segment what's going on today. So this is a news story that isn't being covered so much. Why the trial is up in Denver, not exactly sure. Why you can't have any recordings or anything. They're in there. Our reporters are in there taking notes. Why everybody who's involved with it isn't supposed to talk outside of the court. We don't know. But what is happening right now with Mayor Yemi on the stand, at least yesterday, I don't know if he's testifying today, we'll find out, with Mayor Yemi on the stand, is that the defense certainly wants to bring out the accusations against Yemi, that he was involved, so that in a way, even though he's there as a witness, he's actually, in some ways, people are watching him on trial in a way because he's being asked questions about his involvement in it. And so this story is not over. A lot of people at the beginning, when we started covering it heavily and the rest of the news in town was seemingly ignoring it, we were told this was a nothing story. My gut told me differently, and we're finding out a lot more. And it goes even beyond Mayor Yemi because it goes into why would the press ignore a story? It's such a juicy story about our mayor. Why would they? So we're trying to find it out. And we, as we say the quiet stuff out loud here, we would love for you to be involved. Go to thepeak.news, sign up as a citizen journalist and join us. And in fact, I'll be talking about it at the beginning of the next segment is we're having a webinar tomorrow evening, Thursday the 22nd, talking about how we take the media back, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. You can find that on our website. We'll talk about it a little more in the next segment. So as our guest and co-host here for the hour on Faith and Family Wednesday, we have Guy Rogers of Flourishing Leadership. He's a certified professional leadership coach, and we're going to be talking about leadership or the lack thereof in our local churches and unleashing the fullness of your leadership calling. So Guy Rogers, welcome to the Peak News.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. I love coaches. Because you ask good questions, you're in people's faces, you're trying to get them to just do more and step into the more, and that's what we do here on the coach. I'm sort of an on-the-air coach for everybody. Get off your butt, do something, folks. Colorado Springs is not some idyllic little town. We got some major issues here that we have to deal with. So we're going to be talking about leadership in the Seven Mountains of Culture, unleashing your leadership in the church, and qualities of an aspiring leader. When we come back, we'll have headlines from the hate crime hoax trial. Okay. Cool. I need
Your
to.
name is pronounced Chaim.
Chaim. Yeah, you can drop the. Yeah, it's Chaim. You
But I
can
can drop the key.
drop the C. It's Chaim, but it's really Chaim.
Chaim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Let me just. I got to read some notes. Hey, how we doing?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, could you adjust the camera a little bit so I'm more in it? I guess I'm. Yeah, well, that's what he should be. Okay. No, but okay. Well, but I don't want it zoomed out all the way. That's why we do this, and then tilt it down so our heads are not so in the middle. Keep going. Loosen the thing. On the side, Zach. Bring your right hand up. Up. Right hand. No, you don't touch that at all. That's the balance. That's why I wanted you to bring your hand up to the side there. Yeah, where that gets loosened for tilt. Okay.
Yeah. Phillips, one thing I did right before we went in is these were off. Gotcha. These are these mics. If these aren't on, their mics won't get to them.
Okay, so I'm going to be hitting 4.
And he's hit.
Okay, and do we have a sufficient volume?
Yeah, then always want to make sure this is on.
But I don't want it so loud that I can really hear it, but just so you can hear it over there. Okay, make sure that after the music's done in the next segment, we have Melanie on the line. Okay, cool guys. Okay, we got 45 seconds or 30 seconds. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to us on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. And this is our headline segment. We actually are dealing with some dirty laundry this week because, guess what, folks? If you didn't know it already, this is not some backwater town anymore. We have serious things, serious, gang crime and all kinds of stuff that go on here. And, in politics, it's hard to, have a town of this size and not have some kind of political scandal. And that's what this hate crime hoax is. We've been trying to cover it definitely more than everybody else. And we have citizen journalists. Yes, citizen journalists, actually citizen journalists, volunteer citizen journalists who care about the community. We've trained them and they're working their way through this, and we're putting them on the air to do live reports. And so we're going to have Melanie Winters on in a moment giving that report. But I want to let you know and encourage you to be on a webinar that we're doing tomorrow evening, May 26, 6 p.m., with Bill Federer, a historian and author, Bill Federer, and it's called How We Take the Media Back. And what we're going to be doing during this webinar is Bill is going to be giving the history of hundreds of years of the media really going from serving the public to serving special interests, how we lost the media and lost trust in the media. And then I'm going to be presenting about this model of the peak and what we're doing here and all the different, nooks and crannies that we do to put this together, to pull this off, where we think media is going now that traditional media has lost all trust and is collapsing before our eyes. We need to replace it. And we believe that we've worked out a pretty good model here. And this is our opportunity where we're going to be speaking it across the country. Obviously, webinars go farther out than Colorado Springs. So go on our website, thepeak.news. You'll see a link to the webinar. Sign up for it, and please share it with people you know around the country. We have hundreds already signed up for it. We hope to get a lot more by tomorrow night, and to speak this vision out so people would do a version of the peak in their area. How great would that be for this to be local everywhere, saying the quiet stuff out loud and taking the media back? So we are now doing in our headline segment live coverage from the what's called the hate crime hoax trial. I'm actually calling it the help crime hoax trial because it was done seemingly to help Mayor Yemi. We have Melanie Winters on the line. Melanie, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, so I want to give people just a little bit of context if they don't know about it, that this during the 2023 mayoral campaign, someone wrote the N-word on one of candidate Mobilate's campaign signs, had a burning cross in front of it, videotaped it, and sent it out with an email to the press. It was pretty much seen that it was a hoax. 3 people were arrested. 1 has already done a plea deal. 2 are on trial right now. We have Derek Bernard and Ashley Blackcloud. And you're up at the trial up in Denver. So what's the latest?
So while I was up here, most of today was the testimony from Wes, and the one she did in exchange for probation. She was talking about how Phoenix, who was the owner of the Family Flav, and he had talked her and Trinity talked into going to a Walmart to use West's phone to research how to do hate crimes. And so they composed this email, and they put in there the video of the burning cross, and Phoenix was pushing them to send it out to all social media platforms, this email with this picture from an anonymous tip for hate crimes, and they tried to blame it on the Williams Party for white supremacy and KKK. They had West go to a Walmart to use their Wi-Fi because they did not want it traced to the Wi-Fi at their studio. And they also used her lighter to set the cross on fire. And then there was testimony from the SPD and the FBI, and they had all on surveillance video showing Trinity, Black Cloud, and West at the scene with two separate cars, which confirmed the testimony from West of them setting this cross on fire and defaming the host of Yummies.
Okay, and so she pled out so that she would be a witness. Do we know that was her agreement?
Yes, she pled out for a deal that would give her just probation and no jail or prison time. But if they catch her lying in any part of the testimony, then she'll lose the deal.
Okay. Was there anyone else testifying today that you heard?
So mostly it was West, and then there was Christopher, and he was with the FBI. He was a specialist that did like height surveillance, and so he was testifying about the surveillance video with West on the camera carrying the bundle and showing how it fit with her testimony against her and Trinity being there at the scene of burning the cross.
Okay. Anything else? Any other witnesses?
No, the court went into recess right now, and there was one more coming on, so I had to come out to report on what I found.
Okay. And thank you for doing this. And I want to let people know that we really do citizen journalism around here. And Melanie Winters is a citizen journalist, went through our training course that we did, got credentialed, and is now calling in this report. Are you seeing other press up there? Is this being covered by Colorado Springs Press, Denver Press, anyone else?
There were two other ladies in there. I did not see their press credentials, but they were taking notes. But the courtroom was pretty empty.
Amazing. Do we know why, or do you know why this is up in Denver and not down here in the Springs? Is it a federal court, or what is the court proceedings?
Yes, it's a federal court up here. That's why it was up here.
Okay, and that's because of it being called a hate crime hoax, or a hate crime?
Yes.
A hate crime. Okay. Otherwise,
When they made up the hate crime, the stuff got sent into the FBI from CSPD, so that's why it came up to this courthouse in Denver.
okay. So how is the experience? Tell us about that. I mean, it can be a lot of drudgery sitting in court all day taking notes. How are you enjoying it?
It was actually very interesting. I took about 15 pages of notes just on West. To see all the testimony and to watch the surveillance videos, I never realized just exactly how many surveillance videos are around and can see so much detail to where they go down to the person's height, the color of clothes they're wearing, their license plate in the pitch black. It was crazy. It was so interesting.
But so we're being watched all the time, is what you're saying.
Pretty much.
Okay, that's another part of, we like it when it's in the criminal area, but overall, those are the bulk of the population that are not criminals. I don't know about it. So we have about a minute left. Final impressions of the trial.
I thought the trial was run very well. There was a whole lot of information. I have so much more to tell. I just think it was extremely interesting to find out how this whole hoax came to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for covering it. And we definitely, on the radio, we only have so much time. So we definitely would like you to write some things up or do longer videos that we can put on the website so we can have fuller coverage.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, you've been listening to Melanie Winters, our citizen journalist for the Peak News up in Denver at the federal courthouse, covering what we call the hate crime hoax, or actually the help crime hoax, because it seems that this was perpetrated in order to help Mayor Yemi and actually be against Wayne Williams, who was running against him. We invite you to be a real citizen journalist. Go to thepeak.news and sign up for the next time that we're doing a training. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. We'll be back with Guy Rogers talking about leadership in the church when we return. Cool. Good segment. We're actually starting to do this stuff. The vision is being realized. Took a lot longer than I thought. I thought people would be banging down the doors to be journalists on the platform, but it took us having to do a class so that we could, because I guess people just had no idea what we were talking about. So took them through a simple class and now you learn by hustling. It's like pretty much every job. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take it.
What?
I'll take about it.
And another. I don't know whose problem this is. Could we get? I need a glass of water. I may have left it in the conference room, and then another bottle so we can fill it up, please. Thank you.
You have your glass.
I've got it here.
Okay, so we're back in about 2.5 minutes. This is your monologue.
Okay.
So you have your bullet points. You're ready to cruise through. Okay. So Okay. So let me give you a quick radio. So because it's just voice, no body language or anything, we're a little over the top in our presentation because you get shrunk down going through the radio. So a little bit more presence, more energy. It might feel a little unnatural, but it'll be good. Secondly, people want to hear people having a good time. It's sort of voyeuristic talk radio of like you're in a I tell people you're in a coffee shop listening to people having a conversation next to you.
Okay.
So, the banter, the questions, the things, just that we're, having a good time together and that there's a passion in what we're doing. So, and otherwise radio theater, in that, emotion, vocalizing, it's, or that you're smiling or whatever, so that it adds a dimension because it won't leave the booth if it's not vocalized.
Sure.
Otherwise, as far as timing, this is wrap it up. So if you see that, about 10 or 15 seconds, land the plane, and get it back to me because I have another question to ask or we're getting to break or whatever.
30-second or 1 minute warning?
We do have a 30-second. If you hear music, then I'm 30 seconds.
Okay.
That's my warning track.
Okay.
So if you hear that, it's an automatic wrap it up to you to get back to me so I can throw it to break. During this segment, because you'll have about 4 minutes, I'll give you 3, 2, 1, and this means 30.
Got it.
So that'll be your final. So give me a little chin nod or an eye blink to let me know you got the cue, and then pace yourself as you go.
Okay.
At each time I give you the time, you'll figure out where you are and whether you need to speed up or slow down or whatever. If you come up short, I'll ask a follow-up question, but try to fill the space.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Nope.
So otherwise, just keep the energy up, and it's more that it's the radio voice. It's why it's that it's fast because we have limited time, and it's pushing it. But if people do chill, then it sounds sleepy on the other side. So, okay, we're back in about 10. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. And no, we say the quiet stuff out loud here. If we lied to you, we'd be out of business. Way too much competition. We cannot compete in the area of lies. Not that I would ever want to. And so we figure, bring on good guests, get good reports, present information in context, and then let you decide. Don't let anybody decide for you what the truth is, because it's not really the truth. Truth is not subjective. Truth is. What we're mostly talking about is the meaning. What does this information mean to you? Are we in a good economy or a bad economy? I know there's a lot of people that make a lot of money when it seems to be a bad economy. So really it's what it means to you. And that's why the news should be about presenting facts in context, not trying to be the purveyor of truth. That's my 2 cents or more on that. We have Guy Rogers of Flourishing Leadership, a certified professional leadership coach. And this is Faith and Family Wednesday. So Guy is talking about leadership in the church and how you can be a great leader today. And in this segment, he's talking about leadership and the 7 mountains of culture. Guy Rogers.
Thank you, Chaim. So the 7 mountains of culture, that term was coined back in the 1970s by 2 great Christian leaders, Bill Bright and Lauren Cunningham. And what they referred to was 7 institutions in culture: arts and entertainment, which includes sports, business, families, politics, media, education, and religion. Every one of those leaders in those particular mountains influence in a very disproportionate way where a culture goes. What I want to focus on today is leadership in the church, focusing on the pastoral leadership in the churches and what we know about the lack of leadership development that exists in the churches. George Barna, some of you may recognize his name. He's done thousands of research studies over the course of 40 years, written dozens of books. I had a conversation with him about 5 years ago when I launched my leadership coaching practice. And he said, we found in a survey that only about 1 in 4 pastors, they surveyed 4,000, only 1 in 4 pastors saw themselves as called to be leaders. The thud you're hearing is my jaw hitting the desk when I heard that. I was shocked. And of course, I asked him why that is. He said, because they don't get any leadership equipping, they don't get any leadership developing, and they'll see themselves in a specific track, like I'm a teacher, I'm an evangelist, I'm a preacher. So right there we see, wow, pastors themselves don't even see themselves this way. Then recently, the Dr. Henry Cloud, another name listeners may recognize, very influential speaker, author, he said 80% of pastors don't have a relationship in their life where they can be 100% transparent. 80% don't have anyone dedicated to help them develop their leadership capacities, and 80% are dealing with issues that have reached clinical proportions. Over 40 years of working out in the field in all kinds of leadership, being around a lot of pastors, I concur with that type of assessment. Rarely have I seen pastors who have a mentor or a coach. Rarely do I see pastors who have someone they can confide in. I mean, where does a pastor go if he's struggling with pornography? To his elder board? Probably not. He'll end up getting fired. So we have this real dearth of leadership in the churches. Well, how are we going to see leadership among people in the congregation if they're not getting leadership from their pastoral staff? And I have watched this for 40 years, and it's so concerning to me. I have a pastor friend who I asked him when he went to seminary, what did you get in terms of leadership development? He said, almost nothing. If I mention the seminary, you'd probably all recognize it because it's very well known. This is a really serious problem, and it tells us why, in my view, the church, broadly speaking, has lost so much influence in the culture. Where there is no good leadership or a lack of leadership, you cannot influence the world around you. That's what John Maxwell said, leadership is influence. So I'm passionate about this because I do leadership coaching, and I find that pastors are the hardest ones to reach when it comes to actually coaching or teaching or developing leadership, and that's really unfortunate.
Been listening to Guy Rogers talking about leadership in the church. We're going to be continuing with that. I think a couple reasons for that is this whole thing of the fivefold ministry. People have forgotten about that, and that the pastor is supposed to be everything to everybody at all times, and it really leaves them isolated and burned out. And secondly, if you notice, this 7 mountains of culture seems to line up with the way we do things here at the Peak. I adopted that, not at a depth, but it's just at a width, that these are the parts of culture that we need to make sure we cover, and that's why we have it here on the Peak. When we come back with Guy Rogers, what's going on with leadership in the church continued. Okay, this is just a 2-minute break. Okay. That was a good segment.
Good.
Okay, so we're on page 4 if you want to review the questions there.
Which segment is it?
4, segment 4. We're doing good. Yeah, I just seem really short there. I mean, did you tilt the thing at all? Is it possible it tilted?
Since you changed it.
Okay. No. I mean the anyway. No, I mean you didn't the bottom the ball thing. Okay, you could tilt it down a little bit more. Oh, we're back. Yeah, we're back. Okay. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to us on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer, on Faith and Family Wednesday. And we'll be back with Guy Rogers talking about leadership or the lack thereof in the church. I want to give a shout out to one of our gold sponsors here. You know, we're local news reported by local citizens, supported by local businesses. How cool is that? Like, how do you mess with a model like that, right? People who care about the community are invested in the community. You know, that is where we should be getting our news. People that actually walk the streets, not people across the country or not people who have just, you know, been here for a short period of time. I've only been in the area for 7 years. And so I allow, you know, others to tell the stories. I'm good at interviewing. I'm good at picking up on stuff. But we bring on people who've been around. And that's the context. When you know, I mean, we have interns here. I love our interns, you know, but they're new. So when someone gets out of journalism school and then gets a job and comes into a city where they have no contacts, it's taken me, I'm a really good networker, and it's taken me a lot of years in having a radio show to build out the contacts I have. To be a good reporter, you need a lot of contacts. That's why I'm good as an executive producer. I pretty much know everybody and can send people around in those directions. But you know, if you're here in the community and you care about it, let us train you to tell some stories so that we can really tell everything that's going on here. Shout out to one of our gold sponsors, which is Altitude Hospitality Group. They own the Pinery, Trainwreck, Garden of the Gods Cafe, Dad's Donuts, Vine and Wheel that are advertised here. And their newest venture is up. It's called the Homestead Collective. It's up where the Pinery North was. Just opened on Sunday, 9633 Prominent Point. We had the executive chef who runs the whole operations. Joe Bonavita was on here, was our guest on Monday. And we want to invite you to go up there. It's like, it's an upscale food court. Let me say that. There's sit-down restaurants in there. There's places you can get donuts, just all pizza. Really cool place. Great vibe. They're even going to have a pickleball court. Really cool place. And so check it out, the Homestead Collective. I can go on the homesteadcollective.com. Okay. Back to Faith and Family Wednesday with Guy Rogers of Flourishing Leadership, a certified professional leadership coach, talking about leadership in the church and unleashing the fullness of your leadership calling. So, Guy, let me ask you, you mentioned you've been doing this for 40 years, some level of coaching. What are the most important things you've learned about leadership in those 4 decades?
Well, by being in places where I served under leaders that were good and those that weren't, opportunities to be in executive leadership myself in national organizations. Some of you old timers may remember the Christian Coalition back in the early 90s. I was the first national field director, cut my teeth on a national organization for 3 years. And some of the things I learned were, first of all, that vision is essential to good leadership. And if you're listening to this, you think, well, I'm not the head of an organization, I don't run a business. Everybody is called to lead. From the single mother of 2 children to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Leadership is intrinsic in how we were created. And so how we express it wherever we are should begin with a vision of where you want to go with your life. And I ask my coaching clients, have you developed a personal vision and mission statement for your life, for your family? Guess what typically answer I get?
Yep. No.
No, because nobody ever told them how to do it. Nobody ever equipped them how to do it. You get vision statements for organizations and businesses, but it doesn't get drilled down to the personal level. I had a client I met with just today. He's a Christian leader. He says, I got to work on refining my vision and mission statement. Good. Because if you don't know how you're going to get to Mount Evans and you don't see where you're going, as an old adage once said, if you don't know where you're going, you're bound to end up somewhere else. That's the truth. The second thing that I learned about leadership is you can tell a lot about a person's how they feel about themselves, think about themselves, and how secure they are. I've been around leaders who are so insecure they don't trust anybody. So they delegate nothing. They want yes men around them. And then I've been around leaders who were very secure and they were willing to have other people involved, share the credit, empower them. This is a common challenge in leadership. How secure are you where you are in your life, whether it's head of the family, head of a business, head of a church?
So this lack of leadership in the church that you see, you just quoted in the last segment, George Barna, a very famous Christian pollster for decades, saying that 3/4 of pastors don't even see themselves as leaders. So how could they be that? What are the symptoms that we see of this when there's a lack of leadership in the church? How does that bubble out into the church and society as a whole?
I think the biggest way it bubbles out is people in the congregation are not empowered to rise up to their own leadership calling. You know, the most important thing a leader can do is to empower others to lead well. And if a pastor sees himself or herself as just a teacher, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. But if there's not a leadership understanding in that, then here's what happens. That does not get communicated by either word or example to people in the congregation. So they come to church on Sunday and they hear a good sermon and they walk out and they remember 5% of it and nothing in their life changes. That's very common in our Christian churches. On the other hand, you take a pastor who understands, I have been called to servant lead, which means I have been called to extend influence, which means I have been called to empower others to lead well. Now we see an empowerment of people, and what happens? A rising tide lifts all boats. And that's how churches as a congregation can impact the world around them in a far more effective way than we often see. So that's one of the biggest things that I see as a symptom is that lack of empowerment of people in the congregation.
So how do you suggest we go about fixing this? How do you do it when you get the opportunity that there's a pastor or someone else in church leadership that gives you the opportunity to do it? What are the most essential changes that we need to see in the church in order to get this leadership?
So let's go to the core vision. Okay. What is the vision? What are we supposed to be doing? Okay. Well, Matthew 28, Jesus told us, go and make disciples. If you go around the country, and I've lived all over the country and I've been around a lot of Christian leaders, a lot of pastors, the typical church is about programs, not about discipleship. And if discipleship is truly happening in a biblical model, that means the pastor is being discipled by a coach or mentor. The pastor is discipling the core leadership. The core leadership is discipling others. It's kind of like a multi-level marketing. If you think about it, those who've been in MLN, where did that come from?
By the Great Commission.
Right? Yeah. Where did that model come from? It comes from discipleship. I disciple 3, each of you disciple 3. And if you look at the typical church, and I'll ask you listeners, if you go to church, do you see this happening in a church? If it's happening, it's rare. So the one thing I would encourage pastors to change, and I'm working with a pastor right now I've been coaching who is bringing this into his church, is build into your church a different vision. Your vision begins with discipleship and advancing the kingdom. That's what Jesus talked about. And then all the other things you do are spokes on a wheel. But if you start there, what's going to happen? The leadership of the pastor will grow. The leadership of the people will grow. Leadership of the other leaders will grow. That goes back to the empowerment I was talking about.
Okay. What else? What else do we need to see in the church?
We need to see, I believe, an understanding that our calling in our churches is not to be confined to the four walls of our church and meeting needs in the culture. Yes, we are to meet needs in the culture. Yes, we are to help the homeless. Yes, we are to do those things. I believe that when Jesus said you are to be salt, that meant we are to be culture changers. And actually, Bible commentators going back to the 1600s agree with me on that. I studied this years ago, and they all said the same thing. The calling of a Christian to be salt is to be a bulwark or a stand against moral corruption in the society. If we're all we're doing is staying inside our churches, going to work, and meeting needs, and not stepping out to actually stand up for what is right and good, we're not being salt. But we need leadership to show us how to be salt.
Talk about the ability to delegate and empower others, because that tends to stay within the pastoral class. Now, is that the pastor's fault, or are people just so passive that the pastors feel there's no one to even help?
Well, we have a model in our Protestant churches that literally goes back to medieval Roman Catholicism, and that's this: there's the clergy and there's the laity.
Right.
I heard a pastor 40 years ago say, if you really want to serve God, be a pastor or a missionary. And I thought, I don't feel called to be either of those, so I'm a second-class Christian. That's part of the problem, is we have a structure that creates a spectator mentality in our churches.
And so we break through that by how?
Well, we break through that by going back to what I've been talking about. We break through that by a process of empowering through discipleship from the leadership all the way down in the congregation.
Okay. We have about a minute left. Tell us about Flourishing Leadership. What do you do? What are programs that you offer?
So I'm in my 6th year of being a certified professional leadership coach. I've worked with dozens of clients, from C-level executives like CFOs, vice presidents, to entrepreneurs, business owners, 2 commercial airline pilots. I have a very diverse group of clients from their age in 20s to their 60s. And I work with them with a specific mission, helping them to rise to the fullness of their leadership calling. And here's what's really cool about doing that. I get to walk through life with these people for 3, 4, 5 years and see them grow and see them change. And it's so rewarding and so gratifying. And so I would encourage people who are hearing this, if you're interested in what I'm saying, go to my website. Check it out, flourishing-leadership.com, flourishing-leadership.com. Or you can email me at guy.rogers, and Rogers has a D in it, guy.rogers@flourishing-leadership.com. I offer a complimentary coaching session to people if they're interested. There's no pressure. It's an opportunity for people to, hey, I'd really like to try to see if I can grow as a leader.
Okay. You've been listening to Guy Rogers of Flourishing Leadership. Again, that website is flourishing-leadership.com. When we come back, final segment with Guy, we're talking about the qualities of an aspiring leader. I bet you're one. You're listening to The Peak. We'll be right back. Cool. Good segment.
I always get amazed at how fast time goes. When you
it is.
Just flies.
It does when you're,
I've never had a problem filling a segment. I've done 2-hour segments with talk show hosts. I just never have a problem.
Radio's great. It's, but it is time. This whole podcast thing of where you have unlimited time, there's something to that.
Yeah.
But radio, there's such an immediacy in getting out to the people, and the fact that you can switch up real quick and it's just voice. I spent most of my career in video, which the production value, everything is so much harder, so much, you can't get video together and, during the break kind of thing.
Oh, no.
But here we can switch things up. So, okay, so this will be, they should be coming in and telling me about, okay, what's the deal? Timing and title.
224 on the
224?
gym segment.
Okay.
Talking about society has fallen.
Society has fallen. Okay. 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 So is that more community or society? He uses the word society?
It's society.
Okay.
It's there wasn't good one.
No, I mean, this is fine. I mean, it's,
It works. It can work for business and culture. It can work for government.
yeah. Okay. Do we have enough, or do we need him in doing more? Do we have?
We don't have any good faith and family ones.
Okay.
Hey, the one next week when we have a Pope on, we should have about Jim, about how he does.
Yeah, let's talk to him about that. We're not having the Pope on next week. We're having a priest. Okay. If you book the Pope, that's really awesome, man. You need to get a bonus. No,
So remember, if I'm gonna go prep for partners, you're gonna be rolling right into that. Remember to hit the button.
Right.
Turn off. You're good to turn off live stream and to turn off the camera recorder.
Okay.
And I get started, man.
yeah, I'll hop up, I'll punch the button.
Okay, you
Do
need
it.
more water?
Here you go.
We're sharing this.
I'm good.
Okay, we're back in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a 5-minute segment, so there's about 4 minutes of
Qualities I
content.
see in aspiring leaders.
Yeah, so I'll ask you. Yeah, I'll come up with a couple questions, but
Okay.
but when I give the close, we got to close because with this one we don't get a warning track music because we go to a pre-recorded
Okay.
our rant. It's my he's
Well,
my Andy
your
Rooney.
Your cues are good. I know what they are.
Okay.
So then-
Jim's my Andy Rooney. He's my grumpy,
You're Andy
sarcastic
Rooney.
guy at the end of the news. So we just
Andy Rooney. Gosh,
Yeah.
that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
yeah. Well, he was great. It was classic.
He
So
was.
Jim ran for mayor, ran for city council. He's got no filter, and we let him go. So we just let him rant. We're back with the Peak on Faith and Family Wednesday. Guy Rogers is our co-host, guest for the hour of Flourishing Leadership, a certified professional leadership coach. And we've been talking about leadership or lack thereof in the church. Now we're going to be talking about you, okay? We're all called to lead in some capacity. Maybe it's just your own life, having, right? It's hard to manage ourselves. Much easier to blame other people or tell them what to do. But, in your family, maybe your business, maybe in your church, there's something there. There's a spark there. So in this final segment with Guy Rogers, we're talking about qualities of an aspiring leader. So, Guy, when you get together with when you're coaching someone, they come in, you do that original consult. What are you looking for? Because I'm sure you don't take everybody, right? Because you can't, and you need to work with people honestly. So what are you looking for that lets you know what, I can work with this person?
Yeah, the first thing that I look for is, are they seeking to grow? Do they want to grow? Do they have a desire to grow? Do they reject mediocrity? I don't want to just be mediocre. I don't care if I'm 25 or 65. I want to grow. Second thing I look for flows from this. I'm willing to do the work of self-examination, look at myself, do introspection, take correction, make adjustments, look for my blind spots. Think about it. These are the types of things Jesus talked about, and Paul talks about in some of his letters. George Barna, I mentioned him earlier, he talks about how in his research, he found that the hallmarks of people who are the most spiritually mature was they had people who were mentors or coaches who walked the path before them. So what happened is these people would look to people who had walked the path before them, and they gleaned from their wisdom, they gained from the mistakes they've made, they gain from the insights they have. And if they're willing to be teachable, self-examine, what my wife and I call doing their work, we see them grow. And where they start in terms of their leadership today, a year from now, they are always in a different place. I mean, it's remarkable to watch. And I'll ask them a question at the end of a year. So let's see, you're doing this now. I want you to go back a year. What would you have done a year ago compared to now? One man said, I would have been paralyzed. Are you paralyzed now? No, I tackled it. I never even thought I had the capacity. That's what we see in people who want to grow. And when they're doing that, they're growing in their ability to lead not only themselves, but lead others.
What are some of the key questions you ask people that our listeners can ask themselves that sort of unlock the door, and people that make that from going and thinking, I could be a leader? What are some of the good questions we should be asking ourselves?
I will typically, with a new client, ask some variation of this question. I want you to think ahead to 1 year from now. How would you like your life to look different than it does now? You know how often people get asked that question in life? Rarely. Because we go from day to day, inertia.
Whatever's on fire.
Yeah, whatever, and we take care of whatever's on fire. Yeah. Out of that question, the client discovers things that, I never even thought I wanted to move in that direction. And now we can build on that. So there's a self-discovery that comes, and then a clarity that comes with that, and then direction that comes with that, and then action steps that go with that. And in a year, they find themselves wow, I'm in a place I never thought I would be.
Is there something else? Another question we can ask ourselves?
What obstacles are you running into? Okay, you say you desire to want to grow. What's getting in your way? And there are always obstacles. And oftentimes they go down to the deepest beliefs we have about ourselves. They go down to our identity. Here's a common one. I'm a failure. Very common among men. I'm a failure. But there are other obstacles, and we tackle those because we want them to get to a place where now those beliefs that are lies are replaced with beliefs that are true. And when beliefs become true, now the obstacles are surmountable, and now they can get to where they want to go.
Hey, final thoughts.
Oh, wow.
You got like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
15 seconds.
I love doing this. I hope listeners can hear that. And I love being part of people's lives and seeing them grow into aspiring to lead the way God called them to lead. It is magnificent.
Okay. Guy Rogers of Flourishing Leadership, thanks so much for being on the Peak.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
And this has been fun. You can go to flourishing-leadership.com to learn more about Guy and decide whether you might want him as your coach. And now I don't know if anybody would pick Jim as a coach, but Jim Miller, just a guy. And today, Jim is ranting about how society has fallen, and I agree.
I'm Jim Miller. I'm just a guy, and this is the Peak Rants. Look, I was realizing something because I was having a couple conversations with some of the younger generation. Boy, are they fun. Alpaca, llama, dirty shih tzu, dumpster perm haircuts that these ding-dong boys, they call themselves, have. The newest there is pretty subpar. But one of them fresh driving at the gas stations talking about one of my cars because, believe it or not, I actually have some neato cars from way back in the 80s and 90s and from a long time before. I've had cars for a long time when it was an affordable hobby. I didn't realize how much I was aging myself when I was actually letting this kid know we didn't used to have to prepay for fuel. Never had to prepay for fuel. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you don't prepay for fuel. We used to pump fuel, fill up with what you need, have enough decency, self-respect, dignity, with just a sprinkle of pride to walk in, do the right thing, pay for our stuff that we wanted because we went out and we earned our upkeep, our livings, things we did. We had enough dignity to be happy about earning things, not mooching off the system and collecting so much crap. And we just go in and pay for the fuel we use. And I was thinking about, because modern society is just so garbagey, so much trash. We lock up the detergent, we lock up socks, we lock up deodorant, we lock up razors at the convenience and grocery stores and even the Targets and the Walmarts. Walmart's just a dirty Target, Target's just a clean Walmart. Watching and seeing just all these different changes just in my lifetime is showing me how much society has fallen from the grace of what it used to be. How garbagey America and as a community has become. And I just find it to be unacceptable. If this is progress, I really don't want much more to do with it. I want some of these things like this to go back to the way it was. I can walk up to get some detergent without somebody unlocking something. I can go pump my fuel, walk in and pay for it and not be treated like I'm a criminal or I'm a thief just to purchase goods and services to get me to and from or set up or ready for work again the next day to take care of my family. So I'm personally disgusted and disappointed. Remember, if you want it better, be better. I'm Jim Miller. I'm just a guy, and this is the Peak Rants on AM 1460 and FM 101.1.
Integrity, honesty, and pride in a job well done.
Good. If you want to take a break,
Yeah.
You have about 5 minutes.
Okay, we're right back here, right?
Right back here. So ring the bell when you come up to the lobby so they'll let you, and let them know that you're going out so they'll run and get you.
Okay,
Because when you walk back in, we'll probably be ready for the next show.
good. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Yep, absolutely. Here's the script. You can swap out your scripts.
Okay.
And take those other pages, put them away so you don't mix them up. It's basically the same thing, but just slower. So,
Okay.
I grabbed all the segments.
So these are what we're doing on this one right here.
That's what we'll be doing for the
Okay, so I'll
Christian
put the other
audience
side.
when we come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Our robust website at RockyMountainVoice.com is really updated with your favorite freedom-loving radio programs, podcasts, and journalism from Colorado, as well as our
I'll be back in a couple minutes.
and it's
Okay.
all free. No paywall. ads,
And there's a bell right on the door there. That little.
On the desk there, I think it's
On
on
the
the I think it's on the desk.
Okay.
But let them know you're going out and you'll be back in the lobby in a couple minutes. Thanks.
Whether you're a veteran, first-time home buyer, or looking to refinance,
Well, thanks so much for joining us on The Peak, another broadcast day here where we are honored to serve our community with, well, actual journalism as we're building this out. I'm really excited with what our citizen journalists are doing and reporting on this trial, and we're looking for so much more. And as you just heard in the commercial that played before we came back, we are doing a webinar tomorrow evening, May 22nd, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, with Bill Federer, a great guy. You hear his American Minute podcast here on at the beginning of our show every day. And Bill and I are going to be talking about how we take the media back. Bill, who's a great historian, is going to be talking about how we got here, how the media has just, betrayed us. I think that's a good word. And I'm going to be presenting what we're doing here at the Peak to a national audience to encourage everyone to get involved and bring something like the Peak to their hometown so they can say the quiet stuff out loud and bring real journalism and media accountability there. So you can register. You should register now on our website. Go to thepeak.news. You'll see the link for the webinar. Go there, and then you can you'll be joining us tomorrow night. And I would ask you this. Please share this out across the country, because apart from the events that we do here, this is actually an event that is nationwide. So send your friends to thepeak.news/webinar and have them join us tomorrow night. Let's catch the vision and take the media back coast to coast. Tomorrow's Education and Media Thursday, and we have Lori Thompson, president of the D49 School District Board of Education board there, talking about education in D49 and around our region. And then Friday, we take the day off, and Dirk Hobbs and the Business Digest Weekly is heard at 3 p.m. here on The Answer. Now, stick around on The Answer for the Larry Elder Show coming up next. Check out our 240 or so podcasts that we have on thepeak.news. The Peak, we say the quiet stuff out loud, and with your help, we're saying it louder and louder every day for such a time as this. Shalom.